hard-hitting questions coming out of yesterday. I think one of them was whether or not the horns down is going to be 15-yard penalty in the SEC in the future.
That it was very important to finish and to collect the trophy and to win 10 games and win a game on New Year's Day and all those things. And believe me, we had a great belief in our locker room. We didn't have to do anything special, just be us. I was so proud of this team. We had so much fun, it ought to be illegal.
I said in my press conference back in December that I didn't feel like there was anything at South Carolina that we lacked to be a championship program, that we had everything that we needed. I am even more convinced of that now after being there for 7 months.
There's a report in the Houston Chronicle that Texas and Oklahoma are inquiring about joining the SEC.
I bet they would.
War Eagle. Feels good to say that.
All right. I didn't even remember that 12 years ago, but now that you say that, because I believe there was something about someone didn't have Tebowed first team all SEC, and as usual I was accused of that, so I brought my ballot to show everyone, to show Urban.
Hey buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.
Welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Breton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy. What's going on?
Oh, buddy, you sound like you're in a good mood. What's going on with you, Shane?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, Mike, next week how folks going to know I'm drinking, because I'm going to have the bourbon and can only open it once, you know what I'm saying? That's right, baby. It's rivalry. Ah, shit. Mike, just cut that out. I don't want to sound like a drunk idiot at the beginning of this thing. It's rivalry week, baby.
Absolutely, Shane. We got a whole mess of games here in the SEC to break down. We got a terrific interview with Trey Wallace of Outkick.com. Going to touch on a number of SEC teams. But before we get to the loaded show, Shane, as always here on Friday, I'd like to start with the sponsors, Prize Picks. Head on over to prizepicks.com. Get in on the daily fantasy action, Shane. And the thing we love about Prize Picks, of course, they got the NFL, NBA, I think Major League Baseball just wrapped up, but they got all the professional sports. But what separates Prize Picks, Shane, they got college football players. So, hey, I got a couple Prize Picks selections for you, buddy. You ready to get to it?
Yeah, let's see what you got this week, Mike.
All right, I think you're going to like this one, Shane. Jamison Williams, Alabama receiver, over 79.5 receiving yards against LSU. That's a lock, isn't it?
It's got to be, Mike. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, a lot of yards in the air. I think this is a good one.
All right, now I know you're really going to like this one, Shane. Kentucky quarterback Will Levis.
Benched at half. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I got him under, Shane, 191.5 passing yards. And consider this, Shane, he's only gotten that many passing yards 3 times this season, Shane, and it came against Louisiana Monroe in the opener, UT Chattanooga, and then he did get 192 against Georgia, but I think we all remember that game. A lot of that was cheap there at the end. So Will Levis under 191.5 passing yards. What do you think about that?
That's risky, Mike. That's risky because in my mind, I see this playing a little bit different, a little catch up with the yards passing. So you're thinking this is going to be a Kentucky-led game. So I don't know, man. I mean, I could go either way on that one, either yes or no. But I'm leaning more toward the over, Mike.
Ooh, okay. How about now? This one I know there's going to be no debate for you, Shane. Tennessee running back Tyon Evans. Over 70.5 rushing yards against them Kentucky Wildcats. I know you love that one.
Absolutely. The man's been held back too long. He's healthy and ready to go, so give me the over.
Yeah, so head on over to prizepicks.com and don't forget to use that promo code SEC. They'll double your initial deposit up to $100 right now with that promo code. Again, SEC. This is the best way to help the podcast grow. So we appreciate each and every one of you that sign up over at prizepicks.com. All right, Shane, hey, we'll get to our picks, I swear, but reached out to my buddy Trey Wallace from Outkick.com, wanted to hit on a number of the topics around the SEC, get his thoughts on some of the big games this weekend. So let's kick it over to our interview with Trey Wallace. All right, we're pleased now to be joined by Trey Wallace, of course, of Outkick.com, and you got to follow Trey for all SEC info and all the great work he's doing over there at Outkick at Trey Wallace _ on Twitter. Trey, thanks for joining me, man. I've always wanted to have you on the show.
No, this is great. I'm so glad to be able to join you and talk SEC football, talk the craziness that's going on all around the country, and you do a great job. And I'm happy to join you, man. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, speaking of a long time coming, I really wanted to get your thoughts on this. I know maybe some Tennessee fans are ready to turn the page already, but, I saw you have some pretty strong comments here when I don't even know the guy's name. I think it's Billy Lyons or something like that, but Jeremy Pruitt's attorney who kind of came out here and is threatening Tennessee and all these coaches and all that. What are your thoughts on just that whole situation and, kind of the ploy that the lawyer's trying to pull here?
I think it's more or less you've got an attorney who's kind of dealt in cases kind of like this. He's running on the high from the David Beatty thing at Kansas, and I think he was more or less trying to act like. Here's the best way to put it. He probably had like pocket eights, and he's trying to think that he's trying to get Tennessee to think he has pocket aces.
Right.
Like that's the best way that I can put it. I think it was, an effort it was a scare tactic to get Tennessee to settle with him by that certain date, which was last Friday, the 29th. And look, Tennessee wasn't budging on this thing. They think that, they don't need to, that they have enough. And I know they've got enough evidence that they don't need to do any kind of mediation on it. If they don't, or mediation on a settlement, if they don't think that they need one, if they have the cause or whatnot, then that's all you need. I don't like the whole, why are you threatening Rick Barnes? Why are you threatening the basketball program? Why are you threatening to take down everybody else? And pretty much, talking with people inside the college football community, they view him as a rat. I mean, they really do. And looking at it as well, there's an unspoken rule, man. You don't divulge the secrets of wherever you've been. Because I promise you, Jeremy Pruitt's got secrets from Alabama that he doesn't want out there. And I know for a fact he does. So if you go down that road with Tennessee, I can promise you somewhere down the line, his past at Alabama and his past at Georgia or Florida State's going to get brought up. And I just don't think he wants to go down that road. I would advise him not to if I was his attorney. But, I think this is a guy that also knows that he's not going to be coaching in college football for a pretty long time. And he's trying to get as much money as he can, while he's doing some work in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Well, moving on from Jeremy Pruitt and focusing on the program that gave him the axe there in Knoxville. Any idea, you hearing anything? I know this is, tough to get information on, but with the NCAA investigation into Tennessee, we're almost going on a year since you broke the news that, all that was going on and there was players getting sat out for, the Texas A&M game. So any idea on when the NCAA will kind of conclude the investigation there into Tennessee's program?
Well, I think Tennessee's part of this thing with Michael Glazier and whatnot. I think that's coming in for a landing. Now it's all going to be, and look, here's the thing too. The NCAA is well, let me rephrase that. The attorneys in Tennessee have let the NCAA in on their investigation and what they've come up with. It's pretty much been step by step. We'll see how that pays off. You look at the Oklahoma State thing that happened with the basketball situation, and you kind of scratch your head a little bit. But Tennessee's been very transparent with the lawyers that are representing them, and then also the NCAA in this case. And Tennessee's already done a few things on their own when it comes to self-imposing, kind of making things a little easier on them, when it comes down to a potential punishment that's either imposed by themselves or imposed by the NCAA. So Tennessee's trying to stay ahead of this thing as much as possible. I think that's very smart on their part. So when you look at it now, when does the NCAA bring up something? Well, we've seen how long the NCAA takes when it comes to cases nowadays. I think more than anything, you'll see Tennessee, present something in their own right and self-impose themselves. And, in my opinion, and talking with folks, if they self-impose something, the NCAA is going to know about it 3 weeks before they do it. But that's the big thing. So it's not going to come as some kind of surprise or anything along those type of lines. So, I honestly think we're getting close. I think that this thing will end up wrapping up. I don't want to say the NCAA part wrapping up sometime soon, but I do think Tennessee's part of it potentially will. So we'll find out.
Mm-hmm. Possibly the biggest story right now in the SEC, Florida, Dan Mullen, his future down there in Gainesville. If anybody's missed it, head on over to Outkick.com. Trey had a really good article on Dan Mullen this week. So I wanted to ask you, what do you see the future there in Gainesville? Do you think Dan Mullen is going to survive all this? And I certainly think he needs to win these last 4 games, which the Gators should be a huge favorite in every game they've got remaining on the schedule. And if he does stay, I guess we're going to see massive coaching change on his staff, I would think. What's your read on the situation down there?
Yeah, Dan Mullen's not going anywhere this year. He's got the support of Scott Strickland down there at Florida. But I say that to say this: you better win your next 4 games. Mm-hmm. Better not be losing in Columbia on Saturday night. You're not going to lose to Samford, but you've still got, if I'm not mistaken, Missouri and Florida State. So look, you look at this squad and it just feels like, and maybe this is not going on, but from the outside looking in, kind of feels like some of the players have maybe checked out a little bit. And look, when you're the Florida Gators and you're out of the SEC East running by week 4, week 5 of the season, that's not something that should be happening in Gainesville. Usually the SEC East should be, if it's not decided with Tennessee in years past, I'm talking years past, but if it's not decided then, maybe it's decided in Jacksonville, or maybe it's decided, during that last month of the season. And we haven't seen that. Florida did win the East last year. I thought the whole conference was a train wreck at times. But you look at what they've done since the end of last season compared to are right now. They're 2-7 against, Power 5 opponents. I think this is something that Florida fans are fed up with, and I completely understand that part of it. Because if Florida, they're supposed to be competing for national championships, and it's been a minute since Florida's competed for a national championship. And it also comes down to recruiting. I think the problem with Dan Mullen is that sometimes he just puts his foot in his mouth when he shouldn't. And if he would just stop doing that, I don't know if it'd be bad because fans are agitated with the losses, but it wouldn't be as bad as it looks now. And he comes on the SEC teleconference and, he gives a statement before talking about, how I didn't mean to say this about recruiting. We're always recruiting, blah, 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 blah. Well, when it comes down to it, you got to prove it, man. You know, you've lost 2 4-stars in the last 2.5 weeks. Your recruiting class is ranked right now 22nd in the country, 9th in the SEC. And I just don't think that's up to Florida Gator standards. You know, you look at Dan Mullen as a whole, and I think the biggest thing too is you're not in Starkville anymore. Like you can't go out and win 8 to 9 games and think fans are going to be happy. In Starkville, yeah, they'll be happy with 8 to 9 wins per season, and you know, maybe that 10-win season thrown in there, and you know, you're playing in a New Year's Six bowl once every 5 years, something like that. In Florida, you're expected to do that every single year. And when you don't, and when you have years like, you know, where you go to Lexington and get beat, or you go to Baton Rouge and get beat against a team whose coach was pretty much already gone. You know, they decided to resign the next day, and Coach O. You know, there's just small things that are going on with this program, and I think people were agitated because look how they played against Florida in the second half, and then look where their season has gone since. So, you know, I don't think Dan's going anywhere this year. I think he's going to have to hire some new coaches. I think that's going to be pretty obvious. And, you know, when you hire new coaches, you think it gives you a 2-year window to kind of turn things around. But I'll say this, the coaches that get hired at Florida need to, you know, and I know they will, a lot of it might be for a payday because they're coming in and they might be gone in 2 years. You just never know with this conference. And you know this, when you've got boosters and you've got people in the athletic department that are tired of what you've been putting out, things can go south pretty quick. So I'm just saying, don't go to Columbia and lose Saturday night because it will not be pretty if you do.
Who would you hire if you were making the hire down there at LSU right now? Mel Tucker is a name that I am hearing they're very interested in. I think Lane Kiffin certainly would be the splash that Scott Woodward likes to make, but he's keeping this thing pretty close to the vest. So who do you think is the best candidate for one of the best jobs in the entire country?
You know, I'm going to stick, and I know he's lost a couple games, but I'm going to stick with James Franklin right now. And there's close seconds behind him, maybe 1A, 1B. You know, Mel Tucker's a nice candidate. But I look at Franklin and what he did, first off, what he did at Vanderbilt, and being able to have them as a talk of the SEC for a couple of years, you know, with the way they were playing. And then you go up to Penn State and, you know, you're playing good football, then you mix in a bad season here or there. And, you know, you're going to have that over 8 to 9 years. You know, it's not Nick Saban where, you know, you're going to the college football playoff every year. It's not like that. I think the Big Ten is pretty darn competitive when you've got teams like Ohio State and you got Michigan and, you know, even Wisconsin, you know, they're Michigan State. So I just, to me, it feels like he really turned that program around up in Happy Valley, and he got them to a really good point. And I think he could do that in the SEC again. I honestly do. If he could recruit at Vanderbilt, you can recruit at LSU. And the thing about LSU is that's not a turnaround job. LSU is a job where you come in and you can win immediately because of what you have in that state when it comes to recruiting, what you have for the resources, the boosters, whatnot, you name it. So I think Franklin, you know, would be, you know, an interesting candidate in my opinion to be looked at sincerely for that job. I think, you know, other than that, yeah, Mel Tucker's done good at Michigan State since he's been there. But my question is LSU that type of job for Mel Tucker? Meaning, you know, is Mel Tucker a big enough splash for LSU? Like, that's the thing that triggers my head. Because you've got to go out and you've got to hit a home run. This is not a job that somebody comes in and they're not new to the conference, but this is not a learning on the job type of thing. You need somebody that's been there before and who's done it. Same thing like Texas A&M did with Jimbo. Or, you know, I would say maybe the same thing that Ohio State did with Ryan Day. Ryan Day's been around that program for so long, he understood it, so it was an easy transition for him. But I don't know if LSU going out and hire Billy Napier is going to be the answer, because I don't know if Billy Napier can win at the SEC level. And I look, you got to be there to be able to prove it. But I just don't know, just because Billy Napier's in your backyard and Louisiana Lafayette's been pretty decent these last number of years, I don't know if that's a candidate you go after. And then lastly, you brought up Lane Kiffin. I don't think Scott Woodard is going to hire Lane Kiffin. Do we hear Lane Kiffin's name? Absolutely, because you know who his agent is. Mm-hmm. I think that Lane Kiffin's going to get a bump in pay in Oxford, but right now I don't think he's the right fit for everything that's going on. And some of the stuff. I just don't feel like Lane Kiffin would be a candidate for what's going on and what they're trying to rebuild in Baton Rouge.
Do you think this Alabama team is capable of winning the national title after we've seen them barely survive the swamp, and it looks like Florida may not be that good? The Tennessee game, I know the final score is a little lopsided, but if you watch that game, and I know you did, Tennessee gave them if Tennessee had a full roster, maybe they would have won that game. And of course, the Crimson Tide have already lost to Texas A&M. So what's your thoughts on this Alabama team? Do they have the pieces to win it all?
I think they're kind of lacking right now in the secondary. I think at one linebacker position, they're not as sturdy as they need to be. The biggest thing with me about Alabama this year too is they don't have that explosive guy at wide receiver like we've seen in the past. Whether it be Devonta Smith or Ruggs or something along those lines. They don't have that right now. You don't have a guy that's just downfield, crazy, explosive speed. They've got talent, don't get me wrong, and they've got a little bit of separation. But I'm interested to see how this Alabama team does in these last 4 weeks against opponents that maybe could expose them over the middle a little bit, over the top of the linebackers. Mm-hmm. Because you saw what Tennessee was able to do. So there were just a lot of mistakes in the secondary for Alabama, and it was unlike teams in the past. So I think that's one of their shortfalls this year, is having fast enough safeties. And then also, I don't think, there are times we've seen Henry To'oTo'o, get beat, across the middle and miss assignments and whatnot. And I'm not knocking Henry. Henry's a really good player, but he's not a Dylan Moses type player. He's not that type of linebacker. I just feel like they have a couple weaknesses. Look, there's a reason they're in the top 4 in the college football playoff. Okay, rankings. They're a good football team. But I think if Georgia were to play Alabama on Saturday, I think Georgia would win by 10 points or more, just because of their defense. So we're going to really find out, because as you noticed, during games this year, Bryce Young is not the crazy runner. He don't want to run the ball. He'd rather sit back in the pocket and pass. So if you put pressure on him and force him to make any kind of mistakes, then you've set yourself up in prime real estate, in different field positions. So I look at Alabama right now, and I just think they have some work to do. I think they're good enough to win it all, but they've still got pieces to put together on the offensive side and on the defensive side. And once they do that, maybe in 4 weeks they can beat Georgia in Atlanta. But as of right now, a lot of people seem to forget Auburn is still hanging in there and can actually win the West if they, take care of their business and then, win the Iron Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Now you referenced Georgia there. Is anybody going to test them this year, or is it finally that magical run that these fans have been dying for? I know they taste it now that the Braves have won it all. Now they want them Georgia Bulldogs to bring home the title. Do you think it happens? Do you think this is the year the 1980 jokes finally come to an end?
Unfortunately, I don't know if somebody had to sell their soul to the devil for them to get a Braves a championship. And then, come on now. The football, the sports gods give the state of Georgia 2 championships in 1 year. Logically, I'd say no. But I'll say this about Georgia. They should win out the remaining of the games in the regular season. They'll be tested in the SEC title game, but it really won't. It won't matter. Even if they drop the game, even if they drop that game to Alabama, they're still going to be playing in the college football playoff. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Georgia, their defensive line is way too strong. You've seen that. Their offensive line, the way they're able to open up holes and get that running game going with Zamir White right now, or even Cook, as Kendall Milton recovers from a knee injury. They really didn't have to break off any kind of plan against Florida. We've seen this football team be dominant on both lines of scrimmage. And then also, I like what Georgia has at the secondary and the linebacking group. And when a lot of people ask me about the quarterback situation, and I tell them, man, you don't break up something that's working right now. Like Stetson Bennett is working. Now, there might come a time this season where Georgia feels like they need to pass the ball around a little more. And if that time comes, maybe they throw JT Daniels into the mix. But as of right now, Stetson Bennett's done his thing. This is a kid who's shown a little speed, getting outside the pocket, scrambling down the field. We saw it against Florida. We definitely saw it when they played Georgia. And also he can sell the play action, and he can hit his guys in stride. I'd like to see them get a little healthier when it comes to maybe Darnell Washington, at that tight end spot. If he can get healthier, that's just another weapon for them. But I think right now, offensively, this football team is playing extremely well. They're relying on their running game to set up the play action in the pass game. And I think that's the way Georgia needs to play. And look, nobody's been able to stop it. I know Georgia came out with a flurry to end that first half against Florida, but what did they do in the second half? They just ran the football. Mm-hmm. They took care of business. Florida couldn't stop them. Florida couldn't get them off the field. So, I look at Georgia right now as a superior team in college football. There's a reason why they're number one. It's because they're that good. And when you have a defensive line like that, where you only have to bring 4, you don't need to bring 5 or 6 guys to put pressure on the quarterback. Hell, you could probably bring 3 guys to get pressure on the quarterback. I think when you have that kind of momentum and you have that kind of talent, I think it carries you a long way, and I think that's what we're seeing out of the Dogs this year.
All right, Trey, last thing. I really appreciate all your time. I just want to get a couple quick game predictions here for, in my opinion, the 3 biggest games in the SEC this weekend, starting with Auburn at Texas A&M. Who you got winning that one?
You know what? I think it's going to be Auburn. I think Auburn goes into College Station, and I think Auburn is I'm going to kind of go with a little bit of an upset here. I think that Bo Nix is playing pretty darn good football right now, and that's going to be a big game. And it reminds me of the game they had in College Station. It was 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, when they both came in pretty highly ranked. You look at this matchup, and I think Texas A&M is good offensively with Spiller at running back. Calzada's figured out his way. But I think there's something about Bo Nix and Tank Bigsby right now, and I think the defense is actually playing pretty darn well. So I'm calling for Auburn to go into A&M, pull the upset this weekend.
How about this one? Mississippi State at Arkansas. Arkansas coming off a bye. They need a win pretty desperately.
Yeah, Arkansas, after starting off pretty hot, they've gone through the ringer the last month. I think Mississippi State passes the ball too much. Now, will that work against Arkansas and Barry Odom? We're going to find out, because Barry Odom, if he's smart, he just plays 2 high safeties and tries to keep things in front of him. But, man, you can't really deny what Will Rogers is doing right now at Mississippi State, slinging the football around. 39 attempts last week in the upset against Kentucky, completed, I think, 36 of them. He has 57 attempts against Vanderbilt. This offense is kind of rolling right now, and I'm going to continue riding with the Bulldogs until somebody derails them. So I got Mississippi State beating Arkansas.
All right, 2 upsets. Let's see, 2 road teams you're going with here. How about finally Tennessee at Kentucky? Used to be the battle for the beer barrel. They need to bring that thing back. Who you got winning the game?
Oh, man, this is tough. I've gone back and forth all week on this. If Tennessee is able to figure out a way to stop the running game with Chris Rodriguez and Kavasier Smoke, then I think it sets up real nice for Tennessee to go in there and grab a win. I think Tennessee's offense is extremely fast. And my biggest thing is, if Kentucky had problems stopping Mississippi State's offense, which is somewhat fast, but it's more or less them getting up to the line of scrimmage and passing the ball. I'm very interested to see how Kentucky is going to stop a team like Tennessee, who has Tyon Evans coming back at running back. They'll have Jabari Small healthy. You're going to have an offensive line that's healthy with Cade Mays returning and Cooper Mays that's healthy. And then the X factor is Hendon Hooker. You know, him getting outside the pocket, making plays with his feet. He's had 2 weeks to get that knee kind of healed up. So I you know, right now I'm going to go ahead and pick Tennessee. I think they win like a close one. 31-27, something along those lines right now. I got this feeling that even though Kentucky is saying they're very agitated and whatever, I'm going to use that kind of language about their loss to Mississippi State, I think we've also noticed that maybe Kentucky's offense is not all that everybody has kind of propped up over the last 2 months, because we've seen if they can't run the football, they are not going to have success. And you know Tennessee Tennessee doesn't have the best linebacking core in the country, but they got enough bodies along the defensive line at least if they wanted to try to stop Rodriguez and Smoke. But I will say this. Tennessee will play one of the toughest offensive lines that they've played this season in Kentucky. So it wouldn't surprise me if Kentucky wins this game, at all. But right now, with the pace, the way Tennessee plays football, I'm just going with them by 4 points this weekend.
Ooh, all right, you made a lot of people happy here in the state of Tennessee. He's Trey Wallace of Outkick.com. Got to give him a follow at Trey Wallace _ on Twitter. Thank you so much, Trey. I really, really appreciate you joining the show.
My brother, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Shane, just want to say thanks again to Trey for hopping on the line here. And, you know, he does an outstanding job there for Outkick. He's been covering many SEC schools over the years. He's the one that broke the news that Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt was under investigation. He's the one that broke the news that them Florida Gators were having that credit card scandal all them years ago. So, I mean, he's breaking news left and right. So I really do appreciate Trey joining us here.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate the hot takes, too.
Absolutely. I'm ready to get to mine, Shane. So I know you are. You ready to make some picks?
Hell yeah. Let's do it.
All right, Shane, I'm going to start here with the noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central kickoff on ESPN right after College Game Day. We're going to have us the Missouri Tigers, Shane, at number 1 Georgia. Georgia favored by 38.5 points. Good night. The over-under, 59.5 points. Georgia's beaten Missouri 9 out of the 10 times they've faced off all time. Georgia's won 7 in a row. And last season, Shane, Georgia won 49-14. So who's winning this year, buddy?
Golly, I fell asleep listening to this one, Mike, because that's a nooner for a reason. Just kidding. Mizzou's had it rough, brother. I mean, they've had it rough. It seems like since week 3, it's just been downhill, a downhill spiral. And this just feels like the very bottom when you're going against the Georgia Bulldogs, a team that has not struggled against anyone they played. I mean, we try to create these narratives coming to these ball games and trying to find different ways that teams can be competitive against the Georgia Bulldogs. Well, Mike, I just don't see it happening this week. What I want to see, Mike, though, is more from Georgia. I want to see more from this offense, man. I think the Bulldogs got a clear path to national championship. I truly do. I think this is the team. But the only team that is going to derail them is the Georgia Bulldogs. If they don't get this offense going, and I know you're saying, well, Shane, look, man, look at this one pass that he made. Well, look at this one run. That's not what I'm talking about, Mike. I want to see aggressive play calling from the offense because you're going to need it at some point this season. I want to see if it come out. Has anybody said anything about the quarterback this week, Mike?
No, they're keeping it close to the vest, so we don't even know who's going to be starting for either team, really.
I mean, come on, Mike. You got to. This is the week you bring them back into the fold. This is the week that we start seeing that offense that was clicking last year, because, again, if you don't, you keep pushing this, you keep kicking the can, the next thing you know, you're going to get caught with your pants down. So I don't want to see that happen. I think Kirby Smart says, not this year, my friend. I think they come out. I think they kick ass. Give me Georgia Bulldogs 49. Give me the points. Missouri 6.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they're going to get 2 field goals.
6 points for the Missouri Tigers.
That's it, man. That's all they're going to get. Georgia's going to steamroll them. Now I'm telling you, if they come out with that same bullshit, just run the ball and win the game, then yeah, I like Mizzou with the points. But I don't think so, Mike. I think he looks at that SEC championship a few years back. I mean, that was another opportunity they had. Mm-hmm. Think about the college football playoffs. There's mistakes that Kirby has made in the past. I think he learns from that this week. I understand you don't want to put a hurt quarterback out there, but I don't think he's hurt anymore, Mike. I think it's time to get him loosened up, maybe get him out at half, but get him some playing time, man. Get him some air time, and that's what I want to see from the Georgia Bulldogs, because they do got weapons on offense. They just haven't shown them to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you make a lot of good points, Shane, but the one thing I didn't hear from you there, Missouri's bad defense, man, against this Bulldogs rushing attack. I mean, I don't really think it matters if it's Stetson Bennett or JT Daniels. I understand everything you just said, and considering that everybody and their mother can run on the Missouri Tigers, this would seem to be the perfect game to get JT Daniels in there, and because certainly you're not going to need him to win you the ball game, but maybe just make 5 to 10 passes in this one. So, yeah, and on the flip side, Missouri, we don't even know who's going to start for them. Connor Bazelak banged up. It sounds like that may be a significant injury, but hell, for all I know, he's playing tomorrow. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to be Tyler Macon, though, which it certainly is not going to help Missouri's chances. I think the only shot they've got, and again, I'm not saying this is going to happen, Shane, but it kind of bothers me that I guess it makes sense in one regard, but still, if you're the most outstanding player, you should be recognized as such, even if the team around you isn't any good. But just imagine a scenario where Missouri does hang with Georgia, and it's because they put Tyler Beatty out there and he puts the team on his back. And certainly Missouri, it would take a miracle to win this game, but let's say they nearly win it and Beatty has like 300 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns. I'd put him in the Heisman conversation, Shane, if he was able to do something like that against this Georgia defense. Now, I say all that to say I don't see it, but this is the opportunity for him to make that case, and certainly make the case that he's an All-American. Probably going to be too much to ask that he's a Heisman candidate, but he's playing like it, Shane. He's playing like one of the best players in the country. But I'm right there with you, Shane, and we almost have the same identical score. I got Georgia 48, Missouri 6.
Yeah, the Heisman. I'm telling you, the Heisman Trophy is probably the dumbest trophy in the world, Mike. I'm just not a fan of what it's become. It's almost like a popularity contest. It's a prom king. That's all this thing is anymore. Right. When you look at players like Beatty, when you look at players like Jordan Davis, you look at players that are really, truly taking over the program, just making teams one-dimensional. I mean, come on. That's what a true MVP is, but unfortunately, it's not the 50s anymore, Mike, so now we got to go with whoever's the prettiest one, And unfortunately, they're not on either one of these teams.
Yeah. Well, speaking of pretty, Shade, old Hugh Freeze and Liberty, they're returning to Ole Miss, and I don't know, that was a bad transition, but anyway, Hugh Freeze coming back to town, Shane. This is I don't know how this is a noon game. I mean, this is going to be some fireworks here. Should be the night game, but it is at noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central on the SEC Network. Number 16, Ole Miss, favored by 10 points. The over-under, 67.5. My goodness, Shane. They're thinking this is going to be a shootout. And how about some of these stats, Shane? Liberty, 19-3 in their last 22 games. That's outstanding. Malik Willis, the quarterback for Liberty, he's got 30 touchdowns so far this season. And Liberty got the number 13 scoring defense in the country. Uh-oh, upset special.
No.
Who do you like in the matchup here?
Oh man, transition Mike, you love it, right? I thought we'd be talking. Maybe we're talking Tennessee after this because you guys said speaking of hookers. Oh geez, Mike. You know the thing about this game. I mean, the short of Matt Corral not playing, that is the only way I see this game being competitive. And if you were to put $100 on Matt playing or not playing, what are you leaning toward right now?
I think he's playing 100%, even if he's banged up.
Absolutely. I think the worst thing that could have happened to Hugh Freeze, besides obviously the last time he was in Ole Miss, is the fact that Lane just lost, man. I mean, that Auburn game haunts him a little bit. I think it haunts Maddie a little bit. It disrupts the Heisman race. Here we were just talking about, Heisman being a difference. Nobody's going to be talking about Matt Corral unless there's a reason to. And the reason to talk about Matt is putting up a ton of yards, a ton of points. And that's the type of aggressive play calling I expect to see Saturday when it comes with Liberty and Ole Miss, Mike. I'm tipping my hat. I'm getting it out of the way, brother. I'm feeling a lock coming. This is my lock of the week. And the reason is I look at this Liberty team. Do you know how many games they've lost this year?
I think 3.
Two games, and they lost to Syracuse. They've lost to UL Monroe. And you know what those teams have in common? Mike, they suck, okay? They don't have a shot in the SEC. I know a lot of folks still like Hugh down there. There's a lot of folks that hate Hugh, but, it's a mixed bag of emotions when he's coming to town. But expecting this to be a ball game, not so fast, my friend. This thing will not be close. Give me Ole Miss and the over, 45, Liberty, backdoor 24.
Ooh, backdoor. That's Hugh's favorite from what I hear. But this is a tough one for me, Shane, because here Lane Kiffin comes out, on Wednesday and says, hell, 9 of our 11 starters, they're not even practicing. They're banged up. But how many times has he pulled this stunt? I mean, I can't tell if the injury report's fake. We know the defenders are faking, but, I wonder last week against Auburn, I mean, the defense was clearly overmatched. Now, this is an SEC offense they were facing, but I wonder how much of that is just this grind of a schedule they've been on. And I give Liberty a little bit more credit than you, Shane. I think they're a decent team. I don't think they're terrible. And I really, really think Hugh Freeze is going to be motivated to come into this game and pull the upset. But how can you do anything than go with the Lane trade and Matt Corral in this offense? I mean, I threw out that Liberty scoring defense just because I did think it was interesting. But, yeah, it's because they're playing Syracuse and ULM and everybody. Yeah, of course their defense is going to look good on paper. Ole Miss is going to shred them, just like you said, on offense. But I think Liberty and Hugh Freeze, I think they'll score a little bit more than you project, Shane. So I like Liberty and the points. Ole Miss to win outright. Ole Miss 42, Liberty 35. I think it's going to be a touchdown game.
Oof, Mike, you crazy, man. You need to be in that bed up in the press box. That's where you need to be. Think this is going to be a ball game. I mean, get out of here. Matt went toe-to-toe with Auburn. You know what I'm saying? Lane Kiffin's, I mean, they haven't lost many games. They gave Alabama a fit. But this team's a damn ball club, brother. It's a top 25 program for a reason. And I think they just rebound this week.
Okay. Well, how about, speaking of rebound, Shane, the Florida Gators trying to rebound in Columbia, night game. The Gators, 18.5-point favorite on the road. The over-under is 52.5. This game's at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on the SEC Network. The Gators lead all time in this series, 29-9 with 3 ties, and Florida's won 3 in a row. Who do you like in the matchup?
Who do I like? I don't like either team, Mike. That's the problem right now. I mean, South Carolina's banged up, thinned out. I know they've got some rest, but they're at home, but they're going through some stuff, man. They're going through some growing pains. And, I try to stay positive because they are 4-4. They do have an opportunity to still make a bowl. You do it by beating teams like Florida that have nothing right now. You talk about a spiraling program, that's the Florida Gators right now. Coach is coming out and, explaining press conference. I mean, that's the topic right now is how they're handling things, and they're not handling it well. Florida is good at a couple things, though, Mike. They're good at defense. They're good at running the ball. Problem is, I think South Carolina, if you were just to name one thing that they're pretty good at, is stopping the run.
Right.
Okay, I know they've let some go through, but they got a pretty tough little stout defense up front at times, and I think that's something that they build on. So, Mike, I can't. One second, Mike. Got another beer coming to me here. Sorry, it's a 2-beer pod. You know what I'm saying? That's just where we're at. Thank you. All right. So, all right. Where was I? Oh, speaking of beer, I'm going to need a lot to finish this game, Mike, because it's just not going to be fun. It's not going to be entertaining. I do expect, however, Dan to be a little bit more aggressive. I expect him to take that young quarterback, that AR-15, the gun that we've heard about, and just cutting him loose. Let him have it. Let him have his.
Oh, no,
growing
hold on,
pains.
Shane. I don't know if he's.
No.
We don't have confirmation, but it sounds like he
Oh,
may
God,
not
here we
play
go.
because he got a concussion in the last game. So it's up in the air of who Florida's going to be playing.
Wait, I have not. I was under the impression he's playing. What I've read.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that there's a chance he won't be there.
Correct.
Ooh, Mike. I mean, do I change the score? Because that's what in my mind I saw this coming out. Like, okay, listen, how do you shut people up, Mike? You come out, you do what you were promised to do when you came down to Florida. This is a team, South Carolina team, that should not be competitive against you right now. Okay, maybe 3-4 years from now, Coach Beamer gets his classes in there, gets his staff together, maybe. But right now, in this moment, there's no reason that Dan Mullen should lose to South Carolina. So maybe I adjust my score a little bit, Mike. I'm going to knock a point off, but I'm just telling you, I still think Florida is going to win this game handedly, just because that's how you shut the media up, and I think that's what Dan wants to do. Florida, I can run this thing all day long, Mike. Give me Florida 35, South Carolina 10.
Ooh. Yeah, this is a tough one for me, Shane, because last time we saw the Gamecocks, I mean, they look like an FCS team against Texas A&M. I mean, they just got destroyed. But each of the last 8 in this series, Shane, have been decided by 14 or fewer. A lot of close games in that series here. And Florida, of course, they imploded a little bit there in the second half against Georgia. We've seen, and this was what the confusing part, Shane. I mean, the last couple times they lost to Georgia and the season's kind of on the ropes. The first time they turned right around and they got blown out by Missouri, a Missouri team that I believe they were favored against. And then the next season they turned right around and I believe it was against Vanderbilt and beat them 50-0. So Dan Mullen has shown that he can get his team up right after a tough Georgia loss. He's also shown that he can get blown out after a tough Georgia loss. So, this is a confusing one for me. Like I said, don't know who's going to be playing quarterback. Hell, we don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for South Carolina either. I think it's going to be Jason Brown. I think they're going to turn it over to him, see what he's got. Shane Beamer's out here calling for the fans to show up, make this a home field advantage, and I've seen a lot of South Carolina fans are done with this season. A win right here against Florida, I think, turns that optimism right around and basically locks a bowl trip. So there's a lot on the line for the Gamecocks, Shane. The Florida Gators, not so sure. I think South Carolina makes this a close one, Shane. I almost pulled the trigger, made this an upset special, but like I said, South Carolina played so poorly the last time we saw them. It would be a massive, massive turnaround to pick them to win the very next game out. So I like Florida to win outright, but South Carolina to cover. I'm going Florida 28, South Carolina 20.
I think he plays, Mike. I get the iffy tag, but man, that's what you want to see, the young kid come out. They said he's been doing better this week. They said going into this thing, I don't know. I'm thinking we're going to see him come out. Florida bounces back, but hell, Mike, if there was a chance to upset the Florida Gators, it's now, like you said. I mean, South Carolina, you couldn't. That's like Clemson. You got 2 teams that you saw week 1. There was no chance in hell that you were going to be able to compete with. Now you're looking and saying, well, if the stars line up. You just gonna have to play good ball. The main thing is like Beamer's saying, you got to have a home field advantage. That's one thing South Carolina does have. It's just getting all the fans there. So they do that. Maybe they make it rowdy. Maybe they make this a ball game.
And it's supposed to be cold as hell too, Shane. I mean, I don't know how much of a factor that plays, but with them Florida Gators, the Gators don't like to play in the cold, brother.
Hell no. I don't like to play in the cold.
All right, next game on the docket, Shane. LSU at number 2 Alabama. Crimson Tide favored by 28.5 points. Over-under 66 total points. This game kicks off at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central on ESPN. Alabama won last season 55-17. And I got to be honest with you, Shane, I cannot remember the last time we've had this little buzz for Alabama LSU. We've barely talked about it this week because, this doesn't even look like I can't figure out a way to make this competitive. Who do you like in the matchup?
Mike, for about a year, we had this thing penciled as a 3:30 CBS game, didn't we? I mean, you just knew this was going to be the game, one of the games of the year, to figure out who's going to be the SEC West champion. But boy, things have changed, and it all starts down there in LSU. I just think that these guys, I felt at first there was a little uptick in team chemistry, Mike, but I think that's kind of fell to the wayside here the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that they're not giving 110%, because I guarantee there's a lot of kids down there that are. But I'm just not feeling it from the whole group, because you got a team leader that's not even going to be there next year. That's the most puzzling thing for me. I feel bad for Coach O and the way he's going out. It's almost sad, Mike. I just... that's the story that you're going to hear a million times when you watch this game is Coach O, and they're going to probably talk about Coach Joey Burrow more than they will about Johnson down there. So I think that's the problem with LSU. Big shadow over them, and this game is not going to be competitive at all, man. You hit it earlier when we're talking about the overs. I think there's going to be a lot of overs with Alabama. I think this is a team that is really finding their groove here late in the season. Probably the most dangerous next to Georgia, a team in the country. Is the reason these guys are 1-2. I don't see that changing. In fact, I see that growing this week when they play LSU. Coach, I'm telling you, Nick Saban hates losing. And you got to remember the last time that they came to Alabama, what happened? They had a loss. We had the dang president of the United States up there in the stands. The whole world was watching, and they all remember losing. Well, Nick Saban hasn't lost many games, but he has lost recently to this team. So I think there's a little bit of that revenge factor playing in the background. That's why I just think this thing's put to bed pretty early. So give me Alabama. The points is the only problem, Mike. I'm not a fan of 28.5. When you do have this type of rivalry. So I'm going to get LSU with the points, but it's not going to be a ball game. Alabama 41, LSU 14.
Yeah, we're going to find out how much heart this LSU team's got this weekend, to be sure. They are banged up. Damn near everybody in their secondary is limited or not going to play. The offense, I mean, you never know what you're going to get week to week, and we may, at the end of the season, look back and say, how in the hell did Florida lose to this LSU team? I think we're trending closer and closer to that every week, and, I'm just hearing bad vibes down there in Baton Rouge from the practice. I don't think that, any of the players are getting up for this Alabama game, as crazy as that sounds, but
yeah,
it is what it is, Shane, and the vast majority of this roster, at least the key contributors, were not members of the team or not key contributors to the team that went down there to Tuscaloosa and beat the Crimson Tide. So you factor all that in. You factor that Alabama, they've got a ways to go, Shane. I'm not sitting here saying Alabama is unbeatable, because, hell, we know for a fact they're beatable. They lost to Texas A&M. Last time we saw them out there against Tennessee. I really think if Tennessee had a more complete roster than they currently do, Tennessee may have won that game. A lot of mistakes made by the Crimson Tide in that matchup that gave Tennessee I believe they had a lead in the, what was it, third quarter or second quarter there, but
Hell yeah, we got that plaque up there in the locker room, Mike. We had the lead in the second half.
So I think all those issues, though, is going to allow Nick Saban to get his message across to his team during the bye week. I think they come out super focused, and I think Alabama's trying to get them another, speaking of the Heisman, another Heisman Trophy winner in Bryce Young. So I think this is going to be an easy one, Shane. This is my lock of the week. I'm going Alabama 56, LSU 13, Crimson Tide win and cover that massive spread.
When in doubt, bet on Bama, Mike. I like it. Hey, is there any chance, let's say if you're 1 to 100, 1 being like snowball's chance in hell, 100 being most likely going to happen, upset, what is the odds that we see a trap game scenario and LSU upset? I mean, they do got weapons, Mike. They do got players on that team.
Yeah.
I mean, anything can happen. Like you said, Alabama could come out and just think they're going to steamroll this program, and next thing you know, they're at the second half like Tennessee, looking at losing. So, what are your odds like of seeing an upset? Is it higher, do you think, or do you think it's kind of low right now?
Well, hell, I just locked it up, so I got to say low, Shane. I'd say probably around 10%.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you want this game to be competitive. It is a night game. It's going to be fun. It's going to be electric. People are going to talk about the stories. There's going to be a lot of players out there, a lot of people watching, man. And you just never know, but I don't know. I'm with you. I think it's a very low shot, but anything can happen. That's why we play the game, Mike. That's why they play them.
And the fact that I locked it up, Shane, they'll probably be carrying Coach O off the field as beating Alabama in his final game or something. You know what?
Oh, my God. Do you think they hire him back after that? I think I would. Somebody could beat Saban 2 times? Yeah. At their place? Ugh.
All right, Shane. Well, now we got 3 big primetime games here in the SEC. Mississippi State at Arkansas. Razorbacks favored by 5 points at home. The over-under's 55.5. This game kicks off at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central on the SEC Network. Arkansas won last year 21-14, and they lead the all-time series 17-13. Who do you got in the matchup?
Oh, man. I mean, Mike, we're fighting for a bowl game here. You know what I'm saying? This is big. Whoever wins this one has secured their spot in the postseason play. You got Will Rogers coming off one of the most, I would say, most efficient. I mean, I don't know what other word you'd use. Most efficient game that he's ever put together. He's playing lights out right now. You've got an Arkansas team that needed some rest. And they got it here in the last couple of weeks, Mike. I think that's the biggest thing for me is, if these guys would have fought 2 weeks ago, I think I would have gave Mississippi State the nod. But the fact that Arkansas has literally had 2 weeks to rest for this game, to get their game script, the game plan ready, I don't know, man. A rested Razorback is a tough one to beat. So I'm going to have to go with Arkansas this week, Mike. Beating Mississippi State. The point spread is 5 on this thing. I like Arkansas with the over. I think home field advantage comes through. I just think that, Mississippi State had a couple of really good breaks against Kentucky, and I think it's tough to do that again after the second week. So, I don't know. I like Arkansas. Something about, man. I even though I've got this a 7-point game, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a multi-score game.
Well, you didn't give us the score here, Shane. You just said 7-point game.
No. Well, I was going to let you guess, but 28-21. Sorry, man. I got it wrote down here. I'm sometimes when I do these, Mike, I'm going to be honest with you. I'll start talking or you'll say something and I'll be like, shit, he's right. I need to, and I want to change it. You know what I'm saying? And this is one of those games I did go back and forth because on one hand I'm like, man, if Mississippi State defense if they keep hitting like they did last week, man, if they, or even if they get in some sort of shootout, I think they can outlast Arkansas. But I don't know, man. Arkansas was so much rest. They looked so good a couple weeks ago against my PB team, but I think they're on the up and up. And a lot of people forget how good Arkansas is, and I think they get reminded this week.
Right. And speaking of that, Shane, Arkansas's 3-1 at home this season. They have the SEC's best third down defense. Hell, it's the fourth best third down defense in the country. Yet, on the flip side, Shane, Mississippi State's the only team in the country with 3 wins over ranked opponents. You hit on Will Rogers. He leads the nation, 72.5% completion percentage. He's playing lights out. He's playing the best football he's ever played as a Bulldog. So, man, this is, like you said, this was a tough one. I went back and forth all week long.
Who you got, Mike? Who you got?
Arkansas wants to establish the run. That's basically what Mississippi State does best on defense, stopping the run. Mississippi State's red hot. I want to pick the Mississippi State Bulldogs, Shane. But I can't do it. I'm right there with you, man. 2 weeks to prepare. This game means so much for the Arkansas Razorbacks. After, hell, they've only won one SEC conference game, and it's came in the neutral site against Texas A&M. They're on a 3-game losing streak in conference play. They have the opportunity to win 8, as many as 9 games this season, and I don't think they're going to go they're going to slide the other way if they don't win this one. This is the one where it's got to start. Otherwise, I don't like your chances against LSU or Alabama, to be frank. And who knows? They can't beat Missouri. So who's to say this will be the year they do it? It's got to start now. They go here and beat a ranked Mississippi State team. I got confidence in them to win 3 of the last 4. So I got to stick with that, Shane. I'm going Arkansas 30, Mississippi State 20. I think they cover the spread too here, and they're getting to play. And thank God it's not at noon.
Oh God! I just know one of us. We're probably wrong, I can already hear Mississippi State fans.
They're clanging. They're ringing their bell right now. Since we both picked Arkansas.
That bastard! I can't wait to tweet his dumb ass.
Well, speaking of that, Shane, there's going to be a lot of people saying that because we got Tennessee at Kentucky.
Come on now.
And the line has completely flipped, Shane. The Vols favored by 1 point on the road as of this recording. Hell, it'll probably flip back by tomorrow morning. Over under 57 points. This game kicks off at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central on ESPN2. Tennessee leads the all-time series 81-26 with 9 ties. But Kentucky won last year, Shane, 34-7. That was a whooping. Who do you like in the bourbon bet? Hell, I already know who you like, but just tell me why you like them.
Oh, my. Here's the deal. This is one of my favorite games of the year, brother, because I got a lot of Kentucky fans, I just got a lot of Kentucky friends, man. I just buddies up north. I think Ollie, I think he was one of our first fans to join the podcast. I don't know how he stumbled across us, but he did. And, there's always been a soft spot with the Big Blue Nation since the beginning of this podcast. And as you know, this is Bourbon Bet, Mike. They used to do the beer barrel. They don't do that anymore, unfortunately. I still think they're transferring it back and forth under the ground there. But I think what we did is we said, you know what, enough's enough. Let's start our own. We did the Bourbon Bet. So a couple of them reached out first year, Mike. A lot of Kentucky fans thinking they just going to steamroll the Tennessee Volunteers, and it didn't work out. And there's nothing nicer than getting a knock at the door, seeing the UPS man deliver me some bourbon from up north, But I'm going to tell you,
is that
Mike,
legal? Is that even legal?
No, it's. I don't know. I don't know. That wasn't me. That was a different person. But my neighbor was telling me the other day. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what's worse, Mike? is when you get your ass stomped, because last year everybody gave up. I didn't even want to bet, but I did because I had to. Dan Pruitt, everybody was checked out. Kentucky smoked us. And there's nothing worse than having to go to the package store, finding some Tennessee whiskey, packaging it up, sending it up north. That's the whole point of this, Mike. It's those moments after this game. That's the best part. Not during. We all celebrate during the game, but after, when you're the loser, having to go out to the package store and to the delivery store, that's when you realize you hate your team even more. So, Mike, I was worried about this bet many, many weeks ago. I literally was. I was thinking Kentucky is playing some tenacious football that can't be beat. They get in, especially after that Florida Gator game. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to waste so much money sending Bourbon north. It's just. But I'm gonna tell you, Mike, the tides have changed. Kentucky was exposed during the Mississippi State game. They're not efficient when it comes to pass defense. That's pretty obvious.
Right.
The problem is, how efficient is Tennessee in stopping Kentucky offense? Because I know it's easy to say, well, load up the box, slow down these running backs, maybe, have double coverage on Robinson. Maybe that would be the thing. Let Will try to win this game. He struggled in it last week. But then, you watch that tape, and it really was moments of inches, man. I'm telling you, if Will could have drifted a few more passes, a little higher, a little lower, the outcome could have been totally different, and we'd be talking about another win for Kentucky Wildcats. So this game does make me nervous, Mike, because you got both sides chirping. You got coaches chirping, you got players chirping, but you got two programs that are now expecting to win, and I'm no different, Mike, so I'm not going to beat around the bush any longer. I think Tennessee gets ahead, and they keep pouring on them points. Kentucky can't keep up because Will has showed us one thing. He cannot win a game by himself. Give me Tennessee. I don't care how many points this thing moves around. Give me Tennessee by 10 points, 38. Kentucky, 28.
Hey, 10-point win on the Bluegrass,
Oh,
Shane?
yeah, absolutely. I think it's a 17-20 point game. Then they kind of ease back into this thing. That's where I'm at. That's how confident I am in the big orange Vols, Mike.
Well, you may be right, Shane. I got some good stats for you here. Tennessee leads the country running 2.89 plays per minute. They also lead the country in tackles for loss, 8.75 tackles per loss per game. Tennessee's also number one in the SEC in positive turnover margin in conference play. Kentucky dead last in the nation in turnover margin, minus 12. Yet, here's one important factor in this game, Shane. Kentucky and Georgia, they both have the two best defenses in the SEC in limiting big plays. And, that was critical in the Alabama game. That's been critical all season for Tennessee, hitting the big play. But, the more we watch Josh Heupel's offense, it's hyped up as being a passing game and a quarterback driven. To me, Shane, it's all about the running game. The running game feeds into all that. They gashed South Carolina, Missouri, some of these other teams they've played. They've just ran all over them, and that opened everything up for the pass. Yet the last couple weeks, Shane, particularly I'm thinking Alabama, and even against Ole Miss, Shane, they had a lot of trouble running that football outside of Hendon Hooker. So, that could be a real issue here against Kentucky that is pretty good on the ground, even though they gave up uncharacteristically a lot of rushing yards to Mississippi State. So that is somewhat of a concern. But, Shane, if I had to ask you off the top of your head, what is the thing that has killed Tennessee's defense more than anything other this year?
What has killed us more than anything?
Yes.
Third downs.
And those damn quarterback runs. You know what? And Will Levis is a guy that will run. Before he got to Kentucky, Shane, he had more rushing attempts than he had passing attempts in his 2 or 3 years at Penn State. So this guy will take off on you. I think that may be the X factor in this ball game, Will Levis and his legs. Because like you said, his passing is very inconsistent at the moment. I think the difference in the game, though, Shane, is going to be that BBN up there in Lexington. Kentucky's undefeated at home this season. As long as they're not turning it over left and right, I think Cousin Shane's going to be sending them packages to Kentucky come Monday. I got Kentucky 28, Tennessee 27. It's going to be a nail biter, but Kentucky gets it done.
You said 28-27. You Morristown Honda this thing? What's
Morristown
going on here,
Honda.
Oh, Mike.
Because I really could see either team winning it.
Gosh, shit, Mike. I can too. And I'm not going to – I hate to admit it, but there's part of me that's like, Tennessee's going to Tennessee this thing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you look at it and you're like, oh, well, we had the bye week. We got people coming back healthy. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at the teams we've lost to. Pitt, okay, we should have beat them. Alabama, Ole Miss, barely. I mean, who's the other? Florida Gators. I think back when they were halfway decent, now they just kind of spiraled. So, I don't know. That's the only concern I have with Kentucky is the teams that they have beaten. You know, I mean, right. It's not I get it. It's a lot of victories, but it's not a lot of successful programs. The most successful program you played was Georgia, and you lost to them. So, and of course, everybody pretty much is going to lose to the Georgia Bulldogs. But I don't know, Mike. I keep trying to talk myself into a close game, but the more I do it, the more I just get excited about this offense, and I can't wait to throw the damn football. So we're going to see, Mike. That's one thing. You got to get the fans out of it. You hit the nail on the head. That's the X factor to me, is that crowd noise. You've seen it. You saw it in Alabama. They had a hard time down there next to the student section. So do they bounce back? Do they have these boneheaded penalties? If they don't and they get the crowd noise out of it, hey, we win the game. But if we don't, then yes, I'm going to be sending some bourbon north.
All right, final game, Shane. We got one hell of a game here on CBS. What do you know? They finally picked a great game here. Number 12 Auburn at number 13 Texas A&M. The Aggies favored by 4 points. Over-unders at 49 total points. And, of course, this is on CBS, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. Who do you like in the matchup?
Ooh, I like them both, Mike. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. I love both these teams right now. They are both hitting on all cylinders. Texas A&M, they broke my heart early in the season. They lost a lot of money for me. I thought they'd be further along, and now they're right where they need to be. Yeah, I mean, they've dethroned Nick Saban. I mean, think about that, Mike. They beat Alabama. And here you got the Auburn Tigers, again, a team that we counted out. Penn State, they come down, they struggled against Georgia State, and it's just like, damn, it's going to be another year before Auburn does anything. And what did? They just keep getting better. They did it against Ole Miss last week, which is a top 10 program. It is a very electric offense. It's a tough offense to stop. And these guys did it, and they kept moving the ball. I don't know, man. This is one of those games I keep going back and forth. And I'm going to be honest with you, Mike. The only reason that I'm picking this team to win is because it's at home.
Ooh.
I'm telling you that I think home field advantage is going to be the factor here. This place is going to be electric. That's why I like Texas A&M to win. I still think it's a close game. I still think it's a one-possession game, just like Vegas does. I just feel like Texas A&M scores last. So give me Texas A&M 28, Auburn 24. So give me Auburn with the points. I guess you could say that. There's a silver lining there.
Yeah.
But I still like A&M to win the game.
Well, Shane, this game features 4 of the top 10 rushers in the SEC. Isaiah Spiller, he's number 3. Tank Bigsby's number 5. Devon Achane's number 7. And Jarquez Hunter's number 8. So we're going to have some real star power when it comes to the running attack here between both of these teams. And, of course, Bo Nix, he's playing so well. I think at this point, Shane, we got to stop questioning Bo Nix. I don't even question him. Hell, he just outdueled Matt Corral, who everybody knows one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So I think Bo Nix shows up and plays a really good game. It really comes down to the players around Bo stepping up more than it is, time and time again we were questioning Bo Nix. But the thing that I mainly took away from last week's Auburn-Ole Miss game is the fact that Auburn's offense was just, they were dialing up everything perfectly. They had these long, sustained drives on Ole Miss. They really, really did a number on that Ole Miss defense, and that won them the game, Shane. The problem? Texas A&M is on a whole nother level than that Ole Miss defense. So I don't think Auburn's going to have that same type of success against this Aggie defense. But like I said, I got so much confidence in Bo Nix. I don't yet have that confidence in Zach Calzada, even though I do think he's a solid player. A&M's loaded with the running backs, and maybe they have the best tight end in the SEC in probably the country, Jalen Weidemeyer. Got to get him the ball. That has been key to their offense all season long. But, hey, like our guest Robert Barron said, Jimbo just don't lose at home. And that's one of the biggest things that he has brought to College Station. I know they lost against Mississippi State, but, hell, they beat Alabama, so it's kind of almost zeroed out for that one. And just like you, Shane, I think the Kyle Field, I think that's the difference in the ball game. And I do think both of these teams should be in the top 10. I think it's going to be a heavyweight fight, but A&M's defense, I think, is the key to the game, Shane. I'm right there with you, but I like the Aggies and the points. I'll go Texas A&M 30, Auburn 24. So it's still a one-possession game, but this is going to be a tight one, I think. I think it's going to come down to the wire, like you said.
I'm so excited. I can't wait, man. You know what I'm saying? Oh, if my boss didn't listen to this pod, I'd call in,
Well, hey, buddy, this has been a long pod, and with the interview and everything. But you got anything before we hop off the line here?
No, it's just so fun going through these games, and it's we're getting there, man. I mean, we got the college football playoff rankings coming out. We've got post game talk, our postseason talk. This is best time of the year, man. Baseball's over now. Congratulations, and Braves out there. And now Georgia's like, is that curses? Does that mean we can't win a national? I've heard it all, Mike. So there's just so many things are coming to fold here, and I'm just pumped up, man. I'm excited about this weekend. It's going to be one of the greatest. I think it's going to be one of the greatest weekends.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate you, as always, for showing up. I appreciate each and every one of you for checking us out. Don't forget, if you made it this far, of course, give us that 5-star written review on the Apple Podcast app. We really do appreciate each and every one of those. But that's going to do it. Enjoy the weekend, enjoy the games, and drink you some beer to catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols. Bourbon bet.